So we get different inquiries all the time about different herbs we use in our different blends. And so one of the most recent ones was somebody asking about the use of mugwort in our womb warming tea. And this person was saying mugwort brings on your period. So why would it be in your womb warming tea? A little accusatorily, but I actually understand and I welcome those kind of questions. And this is kind of like one of the things that I think is important to talk about when we start learning herbs or working with herbs. Often when we're coming from like a Western mindset, we kind of get into the space of like rigidly understanding what an herb does, rather than looking at like, what are the pathomechanisms by which it is doing that? Like, why is this herb doing that? So often when we first learn about herbs, we're like, this herb does this herb does that, this herb does that. Really not recognizing that herbs aren't really like doing, they're not like working for us, like it feels important to say that. I know I say that over and over, but like I think the language that we use about herbs really helps shift our understanding of herbs. So when we say this herb does that, we're really ignoring the relationship that we are forming with an herb. When we are working with the herb, we are working with the herb. We're not taking the herb, we're not using the herb. We're working with, we're paying attention to the deep relationship that is forming when we bring something into our body, right? And this is important, especially when we're working with fertility herbs, when we're trying to bring the essence and the energy of another into our body to create something new, to create life, to create balance, to create health. And yet I will say, I love that more and more people are connecting with plants and plant medicine. And I recognize that we might have to get through that kind of rigidity of like, this does this and this does that, to get to a place where we can be having a relationship with the herbs. Like I have a relationship with the herbs, and I have a relationship with my relationship with herbs, which has shifted dramatically over the past 20 years that I've been working with herbs. So as far as mugwort, a warming herb, warming our wombs. It's been used for a very long time to support women's fertility. In like the materia medica of herbs and herbs use, it's actually recommended for calming a restless fetus. So it helps to prevent miscarriage. I don't actually recommend using it in that way. I don't use it that way, work with it that way. See, I catch myself too. In the materia medica, that it can warm a womb, and in doing so can calm a restless fetus or like an imminent miscarriage. That said, it's important to recognize that like it is not appropriate for everybody. And this is really why I say, like, when you're working with our products, when you're working with herbs, it's important to pay attention to the relationship of the herbs and your body. And so we think about the different reasons why we might have a shortened luteal phase, why our period might come on suddenly, why we might not be able to carry a baby to full term. And one of those is that we have cold in the womb. So when we think about cold, we think about things that, like, what happens when you go out and it's cold. You tighten up, right? You contract, your muscles contract. So if you think about cold in the womb, you think about contraction. You might get cramps before your period. When your period comes, it might be really dark. It might be like almost purplish black. And we might not be able to have an embryo implant. It's not going to be like a warm, welcoming, like inviting. It's kind of hard and rigid, and cold things get kind of brittle. So when we think about what happens when we add a warming herb, like our womb warming tea or mugwort, warmth softens, right? Warmth kind of like relaxes. And so we might actually have a longer luteal phase. Like if our uterus is contracting because it's cold, we might bleed earlier. But if we have cold and we add warmth, then yeah, we can prolong a luteal phase. Progesterone is warming, so we might elevate our progesterone when we have a warming herb. How do we know if it's appropriate for us? Is one of the best ways to know is, does your belly feel cooler beneath your belly button than it does above? That's a really just clear way to be like, yeah, there's cold there. It's cold to touch. Other ways might be like loose stool or difficult digestion, but those can also come from other things. Now I want to say the reason that a lot of people say like, well, mugwort brings on a period. What happens if you have heat in your body already? Like what happens with heat? What happens when you boil water, heat water? It moves faster, right? Things move faster. It starts to boil. So if you already have heat in your system and you add more heat, yeah, it might bring on your period faster because you're bringing more heat, right? And so a heated period might look like a really heavy period, like really red blood, really like fast flowing blood, whereas cold blood might be more like black and congealed. Hot blood, like we might have more of it. It might be really abundant. Yes, I formulated all of my blends to be pretty balanced so that like there's not going to be one blend that is like outrageously inappropriate for someone that it like is damaging to their system. But it might be like you drink the warming tea and it adds too much heat to your system because you don't have cold in your body, in your womb. I named it very specifically. It's womb warming. So if you don't need to warm your womb, you might get a little revved up. You might feel a little anxious. You might have a little difficulty sleeping. You might have some like cystic kind of breakouts on your face, like red. It means you're inviting too much heat into your body. And it's actually a really good way of kind of diagnosing that you don't actually need that one. Instead of doing womb warming in your luteal phase, you can work with something else. And that's why we're always here to be in relationship with you as you're developing your relationship with these herbs. We're here to answer your questions. Our moon sisters are here. Often when you see studies that are done with herbs, they're done on one single herb, a large amount of them, and they're not really looking at like what's going on with the people. They're just like 100 people, take this product at a big amount and see what happens. And that's not really how, I mean, I understand that's how like Western science is done, but that's not how we work with herbs. That's not how we've established our relationship with herbs, which are that we're really working with them in response to our body, and also that it's not like a single herb you're taking, which is sometimes why when women are like, I'm taking these Vitex capsules, I'm kind of like, okay, like, herbs work synergistically with each other. So if you're taking an herb that has really invigorating properties, we might add like wild yam to it to nourish and nurture. Wild yam taken on its own might be a little too estrogenic for some people, but in conjunction with herbs that are moving your blood, it'll actually be like restoring your yin fluids, preserving your fluids. So it's important to look at why we're working with an herb, how we're working with an herb. And I welcome and invite your questions. This one came a little accusatorily, but that's your choice if that's how you want to feel about things and engage with people on the internet. You're welcome to it. That's not what I would choose to do, but anyway. I hope that's helpful. Feel free to reach out with more questions. And yeah, there are reasons that I've chosen different herbs to be in the blends. And they're all backed by, my many years of schooling in herbalism. But I also love that people are working with herbs and learning about the herbs. And it's not the kind of thing that I feel like needs to be accredited, like I feel like this is an ancient wisdom that comes to us from the earth. It's for all of us. And if we can work together and communicate appropriately, which this is not appropriate communication, but I think that's how we learn, and that's how we share what we know and share our resources. And I'm always here to share with you as much as I can. Like, I'm really here to teach and educate, and selling tea is secondary to me. Like, if I can help women be more in connection with their bodies, and so the earth, that is my ultimate goal. If you're here and you want to learn, I'm here for it. So thanks so much, and talk to you soon.